Hey everyone, it's Arshawn. Welcome to another edition of the Journey to CEO show. I'm joined by my regular co-host, Dr. Gatty, who will be on the screen shortly, and Carolyn Keller. We're going to be talking about community partnerships. And this is such a great topic for this time period because we're in a period of disruption, a period of change. We were talking a little bit off camera about motivation and how, being more involved in the community can be part of that. The community partnerships can also obviously be part of your long-term strategy. And, when we talk about this journey to CEO that Dr. Ann and I have written a draft book for, and that we've now built the YouTube channel and the community around, one of the things we see is as people get farther down the journey is they start thinking about deeper meaning, right? It goes from just how do I pay the bills? How do I get by? How do I get the kids in school and do the basic things to how do I leave a lasting impact? How do I change the world? How do I build a bigger community? So it plays very perfectly with the work we've been doing in the Journey to CEO process. So without further ado, let's bring Carolyn and Dr. Ann on the screen. Hey guys, good to see you today. Live viewers, thanks for joining us. Drop your comments. Let us know what your thoughts are about community partnerships as we jump into it. Carolyn, you're the expert on this. Why don't you take a minute and tell us what community partnerships mean to you and kind of set the stage for today's discussion?
Sure. So I'm the founder of Curio 412, and we're a consultancy for nonprofits and businesses. And we really take on clients and customers that want to make a big impact, reap the benefits of a tight-knit team, and also attract recognition to their companies. And so when you think about community partnerships, you really need to think about having a system in place that's going to reflect what your values and your goals are. And by being able to combine the best parts of your internal structures and the best parts of those external community partnerships, you really set yourself up for having not only a strong business, but a stronger community. And when your community is stronger, everyone does well. And so I think that that's the real thing that I find with community partnerships is it's not just good business, it's good for everyone. And that ends up creating very, very strong communities.
Yeah, and I want to double down on that for a second. I mean, that is something we're watching this year, and I've become more involved in the nonprofit world myself, but there are a lot of opportunities to mix the business and the charitable and make the two work synergistically together, right? They really can exist quite well together. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about what you've seen in that area, Carolyn?
Certainly, and I've seen a couple of different organizations that have done this really well just in the past couple months. I know Marketing Pittsburgh, which is a collective group for marketing professionals, has combined with the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank, and they're doing an Outrun Hunger where they have a couple of teams that are competing against each other. They're running across the United States throughout their area, but it's just getting people together, even on individual terms, while we're in a social distancing time, just to get people moving and interacting with each other and also engaging in a way that's meaningful. And there's a couple of groups that have been doing this for a long time too. So one that comes to mind is Bark and Gold Photography. And the owner of Bark and Gold for the past few years has been raising money for an organization called Biggie's Bullies. She does photography of pets. And each year she holds a photo contest where people have pay a fee to enter. And then they also have their friends pay a fee to vote. And that raises enough money that they then come up with 13 finalists, dog finalists, who get put into a calendar. And then this calendar gets sold too. So not only does the nonprofit get to reap the benefits of being able to have that fundraising element, but then the business itself gets a lot of recognition from people who want to submit their pets, who want to have those memories for a long time. So it gives recognition on both sides of that coin, and just some really great ideas too. So
yeah,
it's in a really great way.
Dr. Ann, maybe you want to jump in. I mean, you and I did a show just, I don't know, within the last week or two where we talked here on the Journey to CEO show on YouTube, where we talked about, mixing your values into your business and understanding what your core values are. And here seems like a great way to blend all that together.
Well, I think too, the question to ask about your business is, what kind of neighbor are you for your community? How are you being a good neighbor in a sense? And what are you contributing? Because I think that you are in your business going to have employees that are a part of that community, and therefore they want to by coming to work, they want to know that not only are they fulfilling the tasks of the job that they have, but also that it has deeper meaning, and that they know at the end of the day, as they leave, they've done something that is going to be contributing to the greater good. And the United Way often has volunteer days where they will allow or set up with nonprofits some ways that companies can allow their employees to go out and do some volunteer work, and maybe help out a nonprofit for the day, or do some yard work or cleanup, or food bank kinds of things, as helping to stuff food into containers for giveaways for different neighbors or different people who come through and just need to pick up food supplies. There are a variety of ways in which we can contribute. And I think that having Carolyn, who is, her whole purpose with her business is to develop these connections, is really going to do a lot for the communities out there, just to help, because a lot of times businesses don't know who needs what. And to have someone who actually says, hey, this is what your business does, and this is a nonprofit that needs help, and to be able to put them together is a really wonderful contribution.
Carolyn, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that collaboration and that opportunity to work together?
Definitely. And so I think that what I really find is when organizations work together, like Dr. Ann said, when you have either workplace volunteerism or charitable giving or other ways that your employees are actively engaged with something that's meaningful to them, they're also more engaged at your place of work. And so you're not only making an impact in your community, but you're helping your organization to create a better culture. You're helping your organization to build better business. Typically what we see is that organizations that do engage in this corporate social responsibility will end up having better recruitment and retention, because people want to work at a place where they feel that they are valued and that they're doing something that's of value.
Yeah.
And as you think more about that, you think about the skills that come along with being involved in these types of projects. So you can develop project leadership skills, management skills. There's just a wealth of benefits that come even just from having this collective partnership.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one thing that I've seen is a lot of organizations. You'll be able to have these team building exercises. Maybe you'll bring in leadership training, and not saying that those aren't great uses of your corporate resources, but when you do a collaboration with the right nonprofit, you can take some of your employees that want to develop leadership skills and let them lead in that sphere with another team and another atmosphere, and they can learn a lot of leadership skills. And you can really integrate this into kind of a work benefit. I know a lot of people are thrilled when they go to work, and they can also do something to help the community too, right? They get that community day once every couple of months or whatever. And that just makes them want to come to work and stay at that job and not go somewhere else.
Well, it's a more holistic way of looking at things, I think, because you're blending. We're talking about a blending between personal and professional, and we don't have necessarily the 9 to 5, and we're just going to be able to compartmentalize work versus personal time. There's more with the blending. This just allows a more holistic way of looking at a person, not just what they contribute to the job, but also what is their involvement in the community. And some of these things, I'm sure Carolyn can speak to, some of the ideas for volunteering are going to come from the employees themselves. It's not just that the leadership says, oh, here's a volunteer opportunity. It may be that the community park needs assistance in a cleanup, and some of your employees happen to have involvement down with that, with their kids, with that park. And so maybe they come in and say, hey, look, if anybody has time on Saturday, we'd like to get this cleaned up for the winter, or we've got to get the fields ready for baseball season, or what have you. But I think that it's a lot of opportunities for volunteerism in the corporate sphere.
Yeah, Carolyn?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm thinking about, so typically when you think about your business, the first step is thinking about what is your business about and what is your business value. And your engagement doesn't necessarily need to be directly connected to that, but knowing what that is and then talking to your employees is a vital step, because your employees, many of them are probably already sitting on boards or volunteering in their own communities with different types of organizations, and understanding what your employees value is going to help you to create that engagement with your business as well as with the community. So, and even reevaluating that too. If you have new employees that come in and you're realizing that those types of things that you were doing may not be resonating with the employees that you have, being able to respond to that too, so that you're making the biggest impact you can.
And we've talked a lot about having mutual buy-in to culture or to your organizational goals on our show. And Carolyn, I'd be curious, what does that process look like? I mean, have you seen companies that have a process where they say, which projects should we get involved in? Which direction should we go? What would you recommend for people that want to kind of facilitate that discussion within their company?
One of the nice things that I've seen is I know a few companies who, even before they considered doing this, they were reaching out to their employees and seeing what types of volunteer opportunities they were looking for. So typically it can be done in a formalized way in terms of putting out a survey of saying what types of causes do you like to support, or it could just be your regular conversations. I know many organizations will come together and they'll form a group that says, we really want to do this. So oftentimes it's employee driven, which I think makes it even that much more stronger, because that those employees are very dedicated to what they're trying to do and what they're trying to do for the company as well. So I've seen that as really grassroots seems to be the best way to pull that forward from your employees.
Dr. Ann, I think you were trying to jump in a little bit earlier.
Carolyn and I are both involved with the local Chamber of Commerce. And one of the things that we're finding is that the Chamber also is a great resource of knowing just what's out in the community and ways in which we can assist in the community and ways in which businesses can come together. If you have a small business, for example, you've got 5 to 10 employees, let's say, a very small business, you still can collaborate with other businesses and do some things. I know that there's a food drive going on right now that the Rotary is doing, for example, and so they're asking for people to come in, businesses to support that effort. And so there are a variety of ways in which you can find and do your research and find out what is out there that needs assistance. And again, like Carolyn says, it's great to then go back to the employees and say, hey guys, which of these efforts do we want to, support? And I have seen organizations that will allow their employees, say, 5 hours a month to volunteer. So it's actually part of their business structure that they have volunteer time built in. So I think that there are many ways to do this, to get that social responsibility that now is really vital for us. I think that we're seeing more businesses are doing it than not. And I think that it's just allowing the business to be more human and not just be that corporate structure that is cold and with a hierarchy that has just a system in place of who are the leaders and who are the workers, but it's a blending, I see, and more of a dialogue going on between and among the employees and leadership. And it's good for everybody. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more piece in there before we turn it over to Carolyn for a second, which is, you were talking about the organizational hierarchy, Dr. Ann. I think one thing might be interesting here for some companies, and I know I've seen this happen sometimes, is you have your organizational hierarchy within your company, and then you have the community project. And in a community project, you may actually reverse the hierarchy in some places, right? So you actually have, employees that are maybe lower on the pyramid at the company, but are higher in the pyramid at the nonprofit. And that creates a team building exercise that works very well if it works correctly.
Well, it allows for the expertise. That's what you want to see. Everybody has expertise, and leaders, it's not just the positional leader that is important here, but the leaders, like you're saying, Shawn, it's that expertise that somebody might have that is, not in the C-suite, but happens to be an expert at, knowing some, landscaping, for example, and therefore wants to be the leader in charge of this project for, doing a community park, for example. So yes, you're absolutely right that it allows other employees to shine.
Yes. Carol, what have you seen?
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to what Dr. Ann said about the local chamber and being aware of community causes, because I think that's something too that's a great opportunity even for nonprofits. And I don't see nonprofits taking advantage of that as much as I think they really could to capitalize on it. But nonprofits that participate in community organizations like business chambers have a much better chance of connecting with people that may end up being corporate sponsors or donors or volunteers. And so just to speak on that a little bit, that's part of that building community and also creating awareness. And so that's where I really see an opportunity that that awareness of not only what good you're doing, but what help is needed, because no one is going to know how to help you if you don't tell them. So being sure that you are in a position where you're constantly letting people know, here's what we need and here's what we're doing with what we already have, is going to just help immensely in moving both the nonprofits and businesses forward too.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, Carolyn, because there are people that have money, resources, monetary resources that are wanting to support an effort, and they just have to find out what is that nonprofit out there that needs that support, and being aware that that nonprofit is there is very important if they're going to succeed. I think that, you know, there are people out there that have the feet and the hands that can get the work done, but don't have the financials. And then you have the businesses that have the finances. So if you put the two together, you know, in the fundraising end of things, that's another way in which you can be, as you say, a corporate sponsor. And so we talk about I guess we're talking two things here. Not only are we talking about employees that can volunteer, but corporations that can sponsor and give the financial resources. So there are two ways in which you can be a better neighbor in your community, I guess.
And it's funny because I'm part of a group that is a cultural response group. We do emergency response for organizations like museums and libraries. And one of the stories we had was a group in Pennsylvania that had a huge snowfall. They'd been meaning to replace their roof forever, and the snowfall just devastated their roof. The walls, they think the presentation they did for us was the walls were crying, and just like things were just pouring into their building. And they were a little embarrassed because they felt like this was partially our fault. We needed to replace the roof. But once they put the story out about all of the different remediation that they needed and different help that they needed about how to fix the roof, fix the leaking, take care of any other underlying issues that could start, like mold, they were able to get people in the community who came to them to provide those services, and also individual donors who were able to come forward and give money towards helping that effort. And so even in a disaster period, or I know we're all in a little bit of a period of uncertainty right now where we're all experiencing different types of emergencies for our own businesses and nonprofits, making sure that that awareness is there isn't ever something to be embarrassed about. That's just the way that life works sometimes, and being able to be upfront with that really helps you to build those connections too.
Yeah, and this is something, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, being individualized in businesses, having that identity of your business, having that uniqueness. I would think, Carolyn, that when you're trying to pair off with the right nonprofit, the right project, there's a lot of kind of, you know, finding the right mix of the business and the business team and the nonprofit, and, you know, how people are going to work together, how your missions are aligned. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into that. How do you start that conversation, open that process of saying, are we a good fit to work together, and should we be doing, you know, a project together?
I think it really starts with understanding expectations. So your nonprofits are always collecting different data sets on their impact, and then your business also wants to get something out of this. So being very upfront with those communications, and also, at least from the business side, thinking about how much time you have to spend. If you have a smaller staff and your employees are working sort of very, very much with little wiggle room for that, maybe you want to think more about a corporate giving project where maybe your employees don't have volunteer time, but they're able to go out. So there's a number of different factors that go into what makes a good match. But if you're looking at the business first before you start even looking at those sponsorships, seeing what your capacity is, then where you go in and start finding what kind of nonprofits or causes in our community might be a good match for this, then really having those conversations about where are our expectations. So that way you make you set those expectations up front, and that way you know if you've met those expectations or what you need to do in order to get there. And I think that's really the key, is that communication.
Yep. Dr. Ann?
I was just going to ask Carolyn to talk a little bit about how she is involved in this and how her business actually is involved with putting these resources and needs to, together, and how she's getting her businesses and the nonprofits to work together. What's the process she uses, or why would people contact you?
Right. No, sure. Some of the things that we'll start with some of the things I've been doing. I've been putting on a few different virtual roundtables for people to come together. So working with local chambers, working with local businesses, just to facilitate opportunities for them to have those conversations and really put them together. So with that, it's been really a great opportunity for people to know what types of challenges are out there for nonprofits and what type of innovation is out there, because a lot of nonprofits are doing really innovative things right now when they can't be out or having the same educational programs, having the same types of fundraising events. So that's been a really great way for businesses and nonprofits to connect, even just on a free basis, because the roundtables that I've been presenting are free for businesses and nonprofits to come to and gain that information. But in terms of companies that come to me at this time, I think a lot of it has to do with the breadth of experience I've had in the nonprofit sector. So I've been working in the nonprofit sector for nearly 10 years with social sector organizations, arts organizations, and having a wide breadth of where those needs are and what might be a best match for that is really where I would start with an organization that comes to me after taking a look at what their capacity is and what their ultimate, values and goals are.
Yeah, one thing we talk about a lot in Journey to CEO in the book and in these videos we've done on our YouTube channel is, kind of this life cycle planning, right? I mean, and, Dr. Ann helped identify, and then we both embraced this kind of 5 steps in the life cycle of a business. I'd love to know, Carolyn, kind of, how do you balance this at different points in your life cycle, right? I mean, in the beginning, you're just trying to scrape by and get things going. And then you start becoming more and more institutional. How does this kind of community partnership fit in that business life cycle? When's a good time for it? And maybe how does it progress over time?
Right. I think that it can fit in at any portion of your life cycle, as long as you're aware. So if you're a business starting out and you know that this is something that you want to make integral to your business and part of your strategy, then I don't think there's any time that's too early to start to do it. But if a business is a little bit older or a little bit more mature in what they've been putting together, this is something that can be easily adopted at any time. And I think that one of the interesting things for business leaders to know when they're thinking about, do I want to implement some kind of corporate social responsibility, is that it really is something that does good for the community, but will also be a purchasing driver for the customers that are looking for you. I think in a recent survey, over 50% of people who were surveyed said that was a leading purchasing driver, was a brand that had a company commitment. So when you're thinking about your organization, I think it's a lot about your brand and how do you want to be known in the community. And that is something that I've seen a little bit of hesitation on. People are very generous most of the time. They don't want to do corporate community giving or corporate social responsibility because they want to get something out of it for their business. They're really looking to make a difference. And after working in the nonprofit sector, what I've learned is that when you don't have the same types of metrics that you do in a business, you still need to measure something to make sure you're making that difference. And so being able to pull together a strategy for how you're going to use corporate social responsibility for your business and pulling together a strategy for what that's going to mean for your community is going to be vital to really speaking to the values that you have and really making sure that you're doing the best you can to make that change happen or make that impact that you want to see.
Yep. Dr. Ann?
Well, I think that it has to be corporate responsibility, social responsibility has to be intentional. And therefore, if you are starting out building your business, or you're, just getting to the area where you're hiring, the cycle during the life cycle that you're now starting to hire, and you're institutionalizing your systems, I would suggest that the that you need to build it into the business model. It needs to be built into the financial structure, that you know that you want so much of your revenue perhaps coming in is going to be going towards work with social responsibility. I think it needs to be built into your marketing strategy. So as Carolyn says, a lot of people are now purchasing based on what those organizations represent, what they're doing aside from just building widgets. What are they doing to assist in the community? So that is important in marketing. And then your sales team, of course, has to be able to communicate this as well. But I think it goes throughout the entire business model and your systems, that it is not something that it is an add-on, but it has to be integrated in along with your values. And I think that will help drive the fact that it will be continuous. It's not a one-off kind of a thing, but that it becomes part of the business DNA.
Carolyn?
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about, so I started out in the nonprofit sector, transitioned to having my own consultancy, and I think the biggest hurdle for me was not feeling like I was selling something. And you think from going from nonprofit to corporate, you have to be salesy and you have to be making a pitch, but it's really providing a service for people who are interested and need that service. And so I think when you're from the corporate side going to nonprofits, you think about how, well, I don't want to use this good that I'm doing in a sleazy way that can possibly be seen. But when you think about organizations that engage in corporate responsibility and do have it integrated with their financial and marketing plans and part of that holistic strategy, like Dr. Ann said, it really humanizes your company and makes it able to connect to people on a different level that it might not otherwise. And so there's nothing wrong with being proud of the fact that your company, your business, is doing something in the community, is making those connections. That's something that can be highlighted in a way that is making sure that people know you're an organization that doesn't just care about the bottom line. You care about the community and making sure that that is a central focus as well. So I think for anyone who has those types of hesitations, it's important to see the way in which it can translate into the community too, and how it could inspire people to continue to do good within their own local areas.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of that whole of business approach that's becoming so common now, right? I mean, it's so much employees. Dr. Ann talked about the 9-to-5 culture, right? The 9-to-5 culture isn't what it used to be, right? It used to be people had a home life, they came to work, and then they went back home, and the two never blended together. Now you get a lot of your fulfillment for coming to work as part of your greater purposes. Of course, now with the work at home and the education at home and all the other things are going on, the blending of the home and the workplace keep going on. And it sounds like if you do it right, Carolyn, you can really create a system with your employees and your company and your mission and make it all work together nicely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Dr. Ann?
I would just say that every business can be involved in social responsibility. It doesn't have to be the larger corporations. It can be, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. Everybody has the opportunity to be a good neighbor. Everybody has ways in which they can pitch in and help those in need. And it just should be a service, that you're serving others, and that it becomes, as we've talked about, part of your value system, part of your DNA. And we don't have to wait until we're making X amount of dollars revenue. I mean, it may grow over time, that you start small and that you say, okay, one of the things I'm going to do is just help small businesses. During this COVID situation, I would go and buy not business cards. I would buy gift cards, and I would just give those to my clients, so that I was helping restaurants. For example, I'd buy $25, $100 worth of gift cards from one business, and I would just give those to some of my clients just to help out that business stay in business during COVID-19. I mean, there are a variety of ways, and that was just a simple thing to do, but there are ways in which every business owner, every business an employee can assist in the neighborhood. And that's all I think we're trying to drive home here, is that it is just your values and your willingness and your desire to assist in the community.
Yep. Carolyn, maybe you want to comment on that for a minute?
Yeah, I think that, and I've even seen that going the other way too. I know a few nonprofits that they had board members who said, we really want to help out the businesses too. And so their board members donated money towards creating a raffle that was a restaurant raffle. And so the raffle did very well, got the nonprofit a great fundraising opportunity, and the businesses were supported by the local nonprofits. So I think it can go both ways. It doesn't just have to be the nonprofit or the for-profit business in service to the nonprofit business. It really is a collaborative effort, and especially in times that we are now, everyone knows that everyone is struggling, and so it's important to help your neighbor, and it's important to understand that that relationship is going to be something that you develop not just for now, but something that's going to be a lasting part of the way you conduct yourself, whether you're a nonprofit or a business.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. Carolyn, you are a wealth of information on this. Can you tell people more about how to connect with you, see more of your work, maybe get in touch if they're interested in trying to spark this off for their business?
Certainly, yeah. I have a website at www.curio412.com, and you can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then I can be reached via email at ckeller@curio412.com.
Perfect. Folks, thanks for joining us for another episode of Journey to CEO. Great discussion. Hope you got some ideas for your business. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you learned, what you might be trying. Of course, reach out to Carolyn and give us a subscribe and a like on YouTube so we can spread the reach and get to more people. And we look forward to seeing you for another episode of Journey to CEO soon. Thanks for joining us today. Pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work to advance yourself and your business.